1. Introduction. I am Sandy, and I am 25 years old. I moved to the city last spring to begin a fresh life. I wanted to find a new routine and feel independent. I wanted a new start away from my small hometown. The apartment building was quite old. It was simple, but the rent was very cheap, which was important for me. The walls were light brown. Sometimes the floor made small sounds when people walked. However, I loved the sunlight. Warm, bright light came through my window every morning. The place felt affordable and full of light. I met my neighbor on my very first day. His name was Mr. Harris. He was 71 years old. We both opened our doors at the same moment. He looked at me and gave a kind smile. He said, "Hello, dear. Welcome to the building." His voice was very soft and calm. He was polite and seemed gentle. His eyes were blue like the sky on a clear day. He stood tall, but his back was slightly bent from age. I thought he seemed like a man who had lived a long, good life. I spoke to him briefly. I thought he was just a sweet, kind old man who liked to talk. He reminded me strongly of my own late grandfather. I missed my grandfather every day. This reminder made me feel comfortable and warm. I simply viewed him as a grandfather figure. Over the next few days, I often saw him. I started to help him with small tasks. I carried his heavy grocery bags sometimes. I pushed the elevator button for him when we were together. He always thanked me. He called me an angel sometimes because I helped him. Our first meeting was entirely neutral. I did not think anything was strange. I thought he was just a friendly neighbor who lived next door. I felt safe and comfortable with him. He was simply a gentle and polite man with a kind smile. 2. A new friend. I started to settle into my daily routine in the new apartment. I quickly found a job and spent my evenings relaxing. I cooked dinner and watched television. I began to feel comfortable and happy in my new life in the city. Mr. Harris lived right next door. We saw each other very often. We frequently crossed paths in the hallway. Sometimes we met inside the small elevator. He always smiled at me and said, "Good morning, dear." I always returned his hello. These short, friendly meetings became a normal part of my day. Mr. Harris was an old man, and sometimes he needed help. I often saw him carrying heavy grocery bags. One afternoon, he struggled to carry 3 large bags to his door. I immediately offered my help. I took 2 bags and carried them inside his apartment for him. He was very grateful for this small help. He always thanked me many times. He told me I was very kind and often called me an angel. He said I was a good person. I did not expect anything from him. I simply liked helping him because he was older and needed support. I felt a sense of comfort when I was near him. I trusted Mr. Harris completely. He strongly reminded me of my late grandfather. My grandfather passed away 5 years ago, and I missed him every day. Mr. Harris had the same gentle voice and kind, blue eyes. When I was with him, I felt safe, like I was with family. I helped him put away heavy items like cans and bottles in his kitchen cabinets. He always offered me a glass of water or a cookie, but I always said no. We started to talk for longer periods. We spoke about the weather and the history of the building. He asked about my new job, and I asked about his travels. I liked our small talks. I truly thought we were becoming good friends. The friendship felt innocent and simple. I believed our connection was safe and kind. I was happy to have found a new friend so quickly in the busy city. 3, tea and talk. Mr. Harris invited me for afternoon tea. I said yes because I had free time that day. His apartment was old-fashioned, but it was very clean and tidy. I saw many books on shelves everywhere in the room. He had old pictures of his wife on a small table. She passed away 5 years ago, he told me. There were also travel photos on the wall. He went to famous places like Paris, Rome, and London many years ago. He looked like a man who lived a long, interesting life before I moved here. We sat at his small dining table together. He gave me hot tea with honey in a nice cup. He asked me to talk about myself. I told him about my new job in the city and my future dreams. I told him I felt nervous sometimes living alone in the big city. He listened very carefully to everything I said. No one had listened to me like that in a long time. He laughed gently at my small stories. He told me I had a bright young soul. I felt very warm and safe there in his home. I truly thought he was just like family to me. Then, something very strange happened while I was talking about my work. Mr. Harris slowly put his hand on my knee. My talking stopped instantly. My whole body froze completely in the chair. I felt deep confusion about his action. I thought, what is happening right now? I tried to think it was just an accident. He is 71 years old, so maybe he needed to hold on to something for balance. I tried hard not to think bad things about him. I tried to dismiss the sudden bad feeling, but his hand stayed on my knee. It felt heavy, warm, and still. He was a friendly neighbor. He was someone I trusted very much. I thought he was exactly like my late grandpa. My heart started beating very fast inside my chest. I moved my chair back a little bit away from him. I knew I needed to leave the apartment immediately. My intuition told me that something felt wrong and unsafe. I made a fast excuse to leave early. I said, I think I need to go now. I forgot I have something important to do. Mr. Harris's face changed a little, like he wanted to say more words to me, but he did not try to stop me from leaving. I went home quickly and immediately locked my door behind me. I kept telling myself that it was probably nothing, but deep inside, I knew that the feeling of safe friendship was completely gone. This small moment changed how I saw Mr. Harris. 4. The laptop problem. 2 days passed after the tea visit. I tried to forget the moment when Mr. Harris touched my knee. I told myself it was not important. I tried to feel safe again. Then Mr. Harris knocked on my door. I opened it slowly. He held a laptop in his hands. He looked gentle and a little embarrassed. He asked, "Sandy, dear, can you help me? My laptop is broken. I cannot open my email." I felt guilty for my earlier fears. I decided to help him. I thought it was just a small, simple task. I went into his apartment again. I stood near his dining table and looked at the computer. It was a very simple issue. I showed him how to fix the email problem. While I was working, he moved closer to me. He stood too close. I could feel the warm air from his breath near my neck. I felt uncomfortable. Then he touched my hand. He held my fingers softly. I froze again, just like before. I felt worried. He looked at me and said, "You are very pretty, Sandy. You are very sweet. You make me feel alive again." I quickly pulled my hand away from him. I stepped back. I said, "No, please don't." He did not listen. He tried to kiss me. I said, "No, stop." I was firm and loud. I turned around and ran out of his apartment as fast as I could. My heart was beating very fast. My hands were shaking. I ran to my door and locked it immediately. I leaned against the door, trying to breathe normally. The illusion was completely broken. He was not a safe grandfather figure. He wanted something that I did not want to give. I realized that my kindness had led to this big problem. The safe friendship was gone. I felt scared and betrayed. 5. A big question. The next morning, I was still feeling very shaken. I was afraid to leave my apartment. Suddenly, I heard a loud knock on my door. I opened it slowly. Mr. Harris was standing outside in the hallway. He held a large bouquet of white flowers. His hands were shaking slightly. His eyes looked wet, like he might cry at any moment. He looked completely defeated. "Sandy, I am so sorry," he said quietly. "I behaved very badly. I am very lonely since my wife died. I should not have touched you the other day. I fell in love with you too fast." I did not know how to respond. The hallway air felt thick and cold. I waited for him to leave, but he did not. Then he did something that made my body freeze again. It was a huge shock. Right there in the hallway, he dropped down onto one knee. This action was unexpected and impossible. He looked up at me with sad eyes. He asked me the biggest question of my life. "Will you marry me?" I gasped. I felt hot and cold all over my body. Marry him? I was 25 years old and he was 71. This was not a real question. "Marry you?" I repeated, still in disbelief. "No, I am so sorry, Mr. Harris, but no." I said the word no very clearly and firmly. He looked deeply hurt. The sadness on his face was terrible to see. He stood up slowly. He nodded his head once. "I understand," he whispered. He looked down at the floor and walked away slowly, carrying the white flowers with him. I closed the door quickly and locked it. I leaned against the door, trying to get my breath back. My heart was beating too fast. I was not angry anymore. I was filled with a mix of two strong feelings, pity and horror. I felt pity because he was so lonely and clearly confused. He truly believed this proposal was a good idea. But I felt deep horror because this kind of behavior was dangerous and strange. The grandfather figure I trusted was completely gone. The simple friendship was now a big, complicated disaster. I realized I could not just ignore this. This event was too serious. I spent the rest of the day inside my apartment, thinking about what I needed to do next to feel safe in my own home. 6. The complaint. I spent the entire day locked inside my apartment. I was afraid to open the door. I did not want to see Mr. Harris again after the shocking proposal. The silence in my apartment felt heavy and stressful. I thought about the strange things that happened. I knew I could not handle this situation alone. I had to do something to feel safe in my own home again. I realized I needed to take official action. I decided to speak to the building manager. He was the landlord. I walked quickly to his office. My hands were shaking, but I knew that reporting him was the correct choice. The landlord was sitting at his desk. I closed the door behind me and sat down. I told him the whole story from the beginning. I started with the afternoon tea and the moment he placed his hand on my knee. Then I described the laptop problem and the attempted kiss. Finally, I told him about the bouquet of white flowers and the marriage proposal in the hallway. I tried to tell him everything that had happened between us. The landlord listened very carefully. His eyes looked surprised. He told me, "I am sorry that you went through this experience, Sandy." He promised to help me immediately. He said he would talk to Mr. Harris right away. He promised to explain that Mr. Harris needed to respect my personal boundaries. After I left the office, I felt a mix of feelings. I was glad I had told someone in charge, but I also felt a deep guilt. Mr. Harris was an old man, 71 years old. Maybe he was confused. Maybe he was very lonely after his wife died 5 years ago. I wondered if my kindness had been misunderstood. But then I remembered the fear I felt when he tried to kiss me. I realized my safety was the most important thing. I needed to set clear boundaries. Reporting him was necessary for my peace. That evening, I returned to my floor. I looked at Mr. Harris's door. It was closed. The hallway was completely quiet. I waited for him to come out. Nothing happened. The building felt different now. It was silent and serious. I knew the friendship with my neighbor was completely over. I hoped the complaint would stop the problem forever. 7. The silence. The days after I spoke to the landlord were very different. The atmosphere in the building changed completely. Mr. Harris did not talk to me anymore. He did not smile. He did not look at me when we were near each other in the building. When I came home, I often heard his television through the wall. The sound was low, but I knew he was there, right next door. I sometimes heard him walking slowly inside his apartment, but he never came into the hallway if I was there. The hallway was very silent now. I thought I would feel safe and happy after the complaint, but I felt sad instead. I also felt confused. I felt a strange guilt deep inside my heart. I never wanted to hurt the old man. I did not want to be cruel. I only wanted him to stop his strange behavior and respect me. Every time I passed his closed door, I felt a sharp pain in my chest. I knew our short friendship was completely over. It was a loss. I missed the simple, easy talks we had before the trouble started. One evening, I heard him cough loudly. I stopped outside my own door and listened for a moment. I wanted to knock on his door and ask if he was okay, but I did not. I went inside my apartment and closed the door. I sat by my window and drank hot tea. I thought about the whole situation again. I started to understand something very important. I realized that my simple kindness had been misunderstood by him. I was friendly because he was my neighbor. I was kind because he reminded me of my late grandfather. I never wanted a romantic interest from him. I always believed that older men were only gentle and safe. But I learned that age does not always mean safety. Sometimes people hide their loneliness behind a sweet smile. My warm heart led to this cold, difficult mistake. I also learned that saying no is necessary. It is not rude. It is not cruel. It is a way to protect myself. The silence between our apartments was heavy, but it was a clear boundary now. He respected the boundary, even if he did it with silence and avoidance. I stopped blaming myself for being friendly. I started to understand my own strength. I was 25 years old, and I had handled a very hard situation alone. Mr. Harris still lived next door, but the chapter of our interaction was closed. My safety was the most important thing. I accepted the silence. 8. The important lesson. This experience completely changed how I look at trust. Before, I believed that age made a person safe. I thought older men were always gentle. This story taught me that age does not automatically mean safety. Age does not protect people from loneliness or confusion. I learned an important lesson about how some people hide their true feelings. Sometimes, loneliness can look like a kind smile. I still live in the same apartment building. Mr. Harris still lives next door to me. The silence between our apartments is heavy now. I am much more cautious when I leave my home. I think twice before I offer to help anyone new. I am careful with my smiles and all my interactions. I do not want anyone to misunderstand my kindness again. I learned that it is easy for kindness to be misinterpreted as romantic interest. My biggest lesson was about boundaries. I now understand that boundaries are very necessary for everyone. Saying no is not rude. It is not cruel. It is necessary for my own safety and comfort. I stopped feeling guilty about reporting him to the landlord. I realized that my safety had to come first, even if he was an old man. I am a much stronger person now than I was when I moved here. I walk with my head held higher. I now understand the difference between simply being polite to a neighbor and making myself vulnerable to danger. This strange and messy situation forced me to grow up fast. It taught me how to handle difficult situations alone. Mr. Harris never speaks to me anymore. I still hear his television playing through the wall sometimes, or I hear him walking slowly inside his apartment. The hallway is always quiet when I walk by his door. I sometimes think about the shock of that marriage proposal. It was a very strange event, but it is now a part of my life story. This experience was the moment my innocence met reality. I learned how to protect my heart while living in the city. This important lesson about boundaries and self-protection will stay with me forever. I will always remember what I learned in this chapter of my new life.